Mike Vrabel is adamant about adding a top wide receiver to help Drake Maye and the Patriots this season, and I know you guys also want that to happen. So if you want the Patriots to trade for a top wide receiver, go on ahead and like this video for me. On today's episode, we're going to talk a little bit about free agent targets and also trade targets that can help the Patriots get back to a winning season. The dream of T. Higgins to New England is officially dead. The Cincinnati Bengals have franchise tagged T. Higgins with the hopes of signing him to a long-term contract deal, and we kind of knew this was going to happen since free agency is about to set off in the next week, but that doesn't mean there aren't other options that New England can add to their wide receiver core. They can go to the trade market, and they can also look at some free agents to possibly just bulk up that depth and give Drake Maye the pieces that he needs to have a solid wide receiver 1, 2, and 3. So on the first half of the show, we're going to talk about that. Free agent targets. On the back half, we're going to talk about trade targets. You're going to want to stick around for the very last one because it might sound familiar to some Patriots fans. I am your host, Allie Barefoot, and Jordan Schultz has the latest update on New England with a bombshell report that they want to bring top talent to the passing game. With the most cap space by far, they're set to be aggressive, especially at wide receiver. They tried last year but fell short with Calvin Ridley, Brandon Aiyuk, and Deebo Samuel. With Drake Maye, they should have an easier time attracting talent and are willing to spend whether through free agency or a blockbuster trade. So I don't know about you guys, but this tweet feels like something is brewing. Something is about to happen with the New England Patriots, and with free agency set to start next week, let's go on ahead and start with some top targets that the Patriots should try and go after because they need to revamp their entire wide receiver core. It worked for last year because we were sort of in a rebuild and we weren't really sure how Drake Maye was going to play in the NFL, but now that we know he's the face of your franchise, you cannot give him what he has been dealing with this last year. Demario Douglas, Kayshon Boutte, and Kendrick Bourne are not the receivers that are going to get the Patriots back to the postseason. They're just not. Are they good players? Absolutely. But they're not going to push the needle. Nor did Jalen Polk and Javon Baker in their first season. And so I do think that even when you look at that wide receiver core, there are some players you can actually cut to make some room for other guys. The Pats are probably going to want to try to keep 5 or 6 receivers in their roster this year. And I don't know if somebody like Kendrick Bourne is going to make the cuts. I really don't, because there's so much talent right now in free agency. So let's go on ahead and break down our first 4 top free agent targets that the Patriots could possibly try and sign next week to give Drake Maye some hope in the passing game. Now that T. Higgins is gone, all eyes are set on Chris Godwin, who has currently not been franchise tagged, nor has he been re-signed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Chris Godwin is going to be able to provide you with Super Bowl winning catching abilities. And when you look at a guy like Chris Godwin, and if you were to pair him with the throwing abilities of Drake Maye, you're going to get a pretty good duo. But there are some NFL insiders that do believe that Godwin could stay in Tampa Bay. You know, why fix what isn't broken? Mike Evans and Chris Godwin have become a very good duo for Baker Mayfield, but it could be money he's after. It could be the Buccaneers trying to revamp their roster, or even knowing that Godwin's coming off a pretty nasty ankle injury may mean that Tampa Bay wants to move on. But the Patriots have said they will have interest in Godwin if he's available and he's healthy. Right now, we're looking at about $22.5 million a year to sign a guy like Chris Godwin, and I absolutely think it's worth it. $130 million in cap space, you knock off $22 million, you still have plenty of money to sign somebody for the trenches and maybe a couple of other positions. And we know that because you have a guy like Chris Godwin, he's sort of connected to Josh McDaniels because of Tom Brady. Obviously, McDaniels was Tom Brady's offensive coordinator for all the great years he had in New England. And then when he went and played in Tampa Bay, he was throwing to Chris Godwin. So Godwin knows a little bit about the brain of McDaniels just from catching passes from the great Tom Brady. And from what we've seen over the last couple of years, this is a guy that is going to push the needle for New England. Obviously not last year, just 7 games played because of that injury, but still, 576 yards. Hell, Demario Douglas had almost 600 yards. in 17 games. He's an 1,000-yard receiver. He's reliable. Only 5 drops, 3 drops, 5 drops. I think that with a guy like Drake Maye, who is trying to get some veteran receivers, I think Chris Godwin absolutely fits the mold. And I know you guys think so as well. Do you want the Patriots to sign Chris Godwin? Go on ahead and like this video for me if you guys haven't already. It's going to be the pinned comment down below. Be sure to hit that like button for me. You guys better get hit with the YouTube ad break. Be sure to stick through it because we have more free agent targets coming up. Let's talk about another one here in Josh Palmer. This is a guy I really haven't spent a lot of time talking about on this channel, but I think it's now time we tell you guys about one of the most reliable pass catchers that Drake Maye could have moving forward. Is he as flashy as a T. Higgins and a Chris Godwin? No. Is he a clear-cut wide receiver one? Unfortunately not, but with free agency, it's going to be very hard to get your T. Higgins, aka franchise tagging, and extensions happen. That comes with the trades. But if you're looking to bolster your depth, which we just saw in our depth chart earlier, this is a pretty good signing. He can be used as outside depth. You can add Chris Godwin and work him in the slot in the middle. He's a big play threat, which works super well with Drake Maye, who has this arm strength of somebody that does not look like he's in his rookie season. This is going to be able to help spread out those defenses, and we know that Drake Maye loves throwing in the middle to the tight ends like Hunter Henry or Austin Hooper, so even if he drags out that man coverage, it's going to open the field here a little bit, and it's not an expensive signing. 3 years for $12 million. That leaves you with plenty of cap space left over to add the players you really want to play. And I know that when you have a guy like Palmer not being as flashy, you have to look at other attributes. And what I really like about Palmer is that his ability for his catch radius. He has very sticky hands, and at a 6'1" target, that's what is most appealing to me. Yes, I use this picture against the Patriots because he knows how to run routes. And I love the height and the possible radius that he can give Drake Maye with his size, because Drake Maye loves the taller receivers. Being a 6'4", 225 quarterback himself, he's really enjoyed throwing to Austin Hooper and Hunter Henry. Well, the top 2 receivers for Drake Maye in 2024 didn't fit that mold. You had Demario Douglas at 5'8", and I love Pop Douglas for his bursts of speed, but not so much for his height. Same thing with Kayshon Boutte. These were the top 2 wide receivers for New England in 2024. You get Josh Palmer, you add to those Javon Bakers, the Jalen Polks of your 6'1" targets, and that can just expand the playbook for Drake Maye, who tend to be a little bit inaccurate sometimes for the shorter receivers. Another free agent target, which we have known because obviously he's only a couple 100 miles away from New England, Darius Slayton with the New York Giants. A lot of you guys are probably thinking, well, Allie, Slayton didn't do a lot with the Giants, but you have to look at it from a standpoint of the Patriots, right? He can only be as good as his offensive line and his quarterback, and he had a horrific quarterback. I don't even know who the Giants quarterback is at this moment, and I don't think they do either. But what Slayton was able to do with New York, it was one of the few bright spots. What he did last year, overall, in terms of wide receivers, the highest percentage of receptions for a first down or a touchdown. That's what Drake Maye needs. He needs yards per catch, which he's averaging 13, 14, 15 yards a season. But the highest percentage of receptions for a first down or a touchdown, minimum 70 targets, you see right there, 76%. That is why Drake Maye really liked Hunter Henry last year. He knew what he was going to get. 10, 11 yards with a guy like Henry. Now give him Slayton. Well, that can bulk up your offensive pass game a lot better. He's really good down the field, and he's got really good speed. Once again, with Drake Maye's strength, that's going to be a really good pair. We only saw one great go route this last season, and that was with Kayshon Boutte. I'd like to see more of that. Nice little back shoulder drop pass is what Slayton could be really good at. The only thing, and I once again reiterate, because the Giants struggled to have an offensive line and a quarterback, he hasn't showcased his ceiling yet. He hasn't hit over 800 plus yards in a season because there's only so much to work with the Giants. We just saw that this last year with Drake Maye and the offensive line that we had. But he's a good locker room guy. He's going to stay quiet. He's going to help lead. He's going to help Jalen Polk and Javon Baker. He's no drama, which is also something the Patriots need to focus on in this rebuild. And you can snag him right now for about $15 million, leaving you a hell of a lot left over to still trade for, to still sign on a big contract like a $20 million a year wide receiver, but keep him in your depth. And last but not least, a guy that is also not too far away, a couple of 100 miles from MetLife Stadium, Davante Adams. Obviously, last year was an absolute crapshoot with Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, so it looks like Davante Adams is starting to split ways with the gang green. When you have a guy like Davante Adams, I think this is an overall the best free agent other than Chris Godwin the Patriots could possibly go out and get. I think Davante Adams, yes, he may be 32 years old, but you know you're going to get 16, 17 games out of him. He's still playing great, despite all the stuff he had to go through with Aaron Rodgers last year. And knowing that the Jets kind of want to part ways, that Tony Pauline is actually coming out here saying that sources from Davante Adams' team tells me the Jets inform them they intend to cut the receiver in the coming days. So while he may not be a free agent yet, it looks like he is heading to the market, which means it's going to be an absolute bidding war for Davante Adams. So I would try and negotiate from Josh McDaniels' standpoint. Look, I know that he played for the Raiders, and I know that maybe he's not on the best of terms with a guy like Josh McDaniels, but it's nothing terrible. It's nothing they can't fix, especially when there's a fat, large money bag in his face, and he's got a young quarterback with so much ceiling in Drake Maye. They're reportedly looking to cut or trade Adams, but they're not really finding a trade that's going to work for the New York Jets. But he is set to earn $35 million over the next 2 seasons, so a little bit on the pricier side. But you're probably thinking, Allie, we want young, we want to rebuild. And I agree with you, but he's not like most 32-year-olds. He's still producing year in and year out. And with 85 receptions, the Patriots would be lucky to get 85 receptions last year. 100 receptions the last 3 seasons out of 4 with 1,000+ yards. He is going to do wonders for Drake Maye in his catch capabilities and allowing Josh McDaniels to open up the playbook, a guy he already knows. And we also know that when you have a guy like Davante Adams who played for Josh McDaniels as the OC, he knows he's going to get the rock. He knows he's going to be the top target. He wasn't that in New York with Garrett Wilson. Davante Adams would want to come here because he's going to get the most production out of any other team that he could possibly sign for. But let me ask you guys this. I know that free agency, Vrabel even said it's not always the best place to go out and get your top target, but that's why we have trades. But I do still think we should take advantage of free agency as much as we possibly can. Should the Patriots add wide receiver depth in free agency? Type Y for yes, type N for no. Let me know in the comment section down below. That rhymed. All right, now we're going to talk about some trade targets for the Patriots. I only have 3, and I promise if you've made it this far, stick around for that last player. Obviously, I'm going to talk about the latest rumor on Brandon Aiyuk, another trade target from San Francisco. We tried to get him last year, but it just didn't work out. And I don't blame Brandon Aiyuk. He said he didn't want to come to New England because the quarterback situation was too much up in the air. And I wouldn't want to take passes from Jakobi Brissett for 5 games of the season either. But he didn't really help himself last year. He got injured, and he wasn't really producing the way that he probably thought he was going to. Now, the latest report does show from Ian Rappaport, from our combine coverage, a breakdown of some big-name wide receivers who could be traded, looking at Cooper Kupp, Deebo Samuel, who did get traded to the Commanders, and maybe even Brandon Aiyuk. Could the 49ers be looking to absolutely shed some wide receivers, hopefully pay Brock Purdy, and add up some draft capital? So let's go back to about a year ago. Why were we interested in Brandon Aiyuk? Why was he not interested in us? You could probably figure that one out on your own. But I know that we offered him the most money possible by all the other teams that wanted him, but he just didn't feel confident in playing for New England. And I understand. 4-12, 4-13 isn't going to attract that many great players. But the Pats and Aiyuk did get into deep trade talks last season, and they even had a trade framework in place, but it just couldn't get done. Now, keep in mind, he tore his ACL in Week 7. He's been recuperating, but analysts are saying that he is expected to make a good recovery and be healthy by next year. We haven't seen it just yet, so it's going to be one of those things of trust the process. He signed a 4-year, $120 million contract in 2024, which means the Patriots are going to be adding on a huge chunk of their cap space to pay a guy like Brandon Aiyuk. I do still think it's worth it. I think adding any type of veteran to help Drake Maye is going to improve the offense as a whole. Brandon Aiyuk may be a little questionable because of that ACL, but we'll talk about it in just 1 second. Do you guys think they should trade for Brandon Aiyuk? Go on ahead, like this video for me. If I see 500 likes in this video, I'll know Aiyuk is a good target. Now, before I talk a little bit more about Aiyuk, let me go ahead and tell you guys about this great deal right now. Use this link because, look, I'm trying to gear up for the Patriots season this upcoming year. It's in Texas. It's already starting to get hot, so I got to get my t-shirts flowing. I saw this deal, immediately thought of you guys, and I want you guys to have it. Use chatsports.com/New England T. That's going to get you guys 50% off. Half off these t-shirts. I heard the blue and white ones are doing really well, going pretty quickly, so you might want to go snag yours. The red are also available. You can get them in multiple sizes. Wear this on the golf course. Wear this to a bar. Wear it to Gillette Stadium later this year, but I want to make sure you guys get this for $19.99. I'm going to put this link in the comment section under this video. Go snag your t-shirt. My overall analysis on Brandon Aiyuk is that you really have no room to be picky. You don't. You need solutions, period, point blank. I don't care if it's for the future or for right now. You need to add talent. It may be a bit of a shaky situation with Brandon Aiyuk and slightly a gamble just because of his production last year and the torn ACL, and maybe his best days are behind him. But once again, you do not have room to be picky. And if he is available and he is healthy, that'd be a game changer. And I think the same thing for Cooper Kupp. This is one of my favorite trade targets right now for the Patriots. There has been some rumors that maybe he's going to be a cut candidate. I would lean more so towards that than possibly a trade for Cooper Kupp, but I think he would work so well with Drake Maye. He was outshined by Puka Nacua in Los Angeles, but he was being coached by one of the best offensive-minded guys in the game right now in Sean McVay. He's still going to have that talent in New England. Yes, he may not be as great as he was when he won the Super Bowl MVP, but I do think that he has a lot left in the tank, and if he can stay healthy, that is going to help Drake Maye so much moving forward. And from Nick Cattles, it looks like the Patriots front office also agrees with me. They would have interest in Davante Adams and Cooper Kupp if they are released. Adams did very well with Josh McDaniels' offense, and any personal issues have been overblown. But I want to emphasize on the Cooper Kupp right now because you are getting a reliable veteran wide receiver. 700 yards may not sound like a lot compared to Brandon Aiyuk or possibly even a T. Higgins, but it would be the most yards the Patriots had in 2024 for any receiver. Same thing in 2023. Been dealing with a little bit of injury the last couple of years, but what he could possibly do for New England in a new revamped system, it reminds me a lot of a guy like Zach Ertz, right? Trying to find his place in the NFL, struggling with the Cardinals, really kind of just outran his visit in Philadelphia, signs with the Commanders and becomes a great, reliable target for a guy like Jaden Daniels. Even said that it brought the joy back to the love of his game when he played for the Commanders and a young quarterback. Maybe we could possibly revamp a guy like Cooper Kupp. Give him the veteran presence. You know he's also going to help Polk and Javon Baker a way that he helped Puka Nacua. And he doesn't have to be your only wide receiver moves. You're probably thinking, Allie, Cooper Kupp's not going to push the needle. Absolutely not. You go sign Darius Slayton in free agency. You go draft Travis Hunter, Tetero, and McMillan. Now you're starting to establish more of a core. But Cooper Kupp is obviously not the only trade target that we do have, but I think he is arguably right now the best one for Drake Maye. I like how he runs routes. I like how Cooper Kupp is going to take initiative, and he knows that if that play is going to explode, he'll cut inside, run an in route, and help Drake Maye find an open target, which wasn't something that he had from a lot of the wide receivers that we were giving him in 2024. The last trade target, if you made it this long, I told you it was worth it. You remember him, Jakobi Meyers played a couple of years in New England after he did sign with them out of the NFL draft. And obviously, there was a bit of a falling out because they ended up keeping Juju Smith-Schuster over Jakobi Meyers, and we all saw how that went. He left New England in 2023 after they could not come to an agreement on his next new contract. And what he did in Las Vegas was 10 times better than anything he ever done in New England. But that's why now is the best time. He is reaching his ceiling, getting closer and closer to that productive wide receiver we thought we could have had in New England, but now he's actually showcasing it. And he's in the final year of his Las Vegas contract for about $11 million a year. The number one stat I want to show you guys about Jakobi Meyers and what he has done since he has left New England is the wide receiver drop rates in this last year. He is number one with a 0% drop rate on a minimum of 75 targets. That is why you trade for Jakobi Meyers. He is not the same receiver that you saw in the blue and red many years ago. In 2024, he absolutely became an unsung hero for a struggling receiving core in Las Vegas, especially with the quarterbacks. You weren't sure if it was going to be Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew throwing him the rock. But he still was able to produce an 1,000-yard season, 126 targets, 27 receptions of 15-plus yards. We know that Drake Maye likes to have those quick slants and likes to have those 20-yard gains. 16 contested catches. He knows how to go toe-to-toe in man coverage with 0 drops. I cannot emphasize that enough. 0 drops. Jakobi Meyers can come back to New England, try it in a different fashion with Mike Vrabel and Josh McDaniels, and I think that the trade would possibly work out in the Raiders' favor as well. Now, a trade idea, I cooked this up here. I did ask Mitchell Renz, the host of the Raiders Report. I said, hey, what about Jakobi Meyers and Davon Godchaux for a player-for-player trade? He said, no chance. But maybe we could talk with a third-round pick. And I love that. Why? Because we have 2 third-round picks. Thank you, Matthew Judon. Via Atlanta, you give them the 2025 third-round pick. Guess what? You still have another pick right before that, around pick number 70, that you can keep, and you lose nothing. And then you get rid of Davon Godchaux, who has permission to seek a trade, not seemingly fitting in the defensive scheme for Mike Vrabel right now, and you get a wide receiver in Jakobi Meyers. Everybody's happy. I really like this trade, but do you want Jakobi Meyers back in New England? Go on ahead, like this video if that is a yes. I like it. I think it's a guy that knows the franchise. It's going to be a different scheme, thankfully. But I think that if a guy is coming off one of his best seasons with a very uncertain quarterback situation and a very shaky offensive line, what we're doing in New England helping rebuild could give Meyers a fresh start in Foxborough. Woo! If you guys made it to the end of this video, go on ahead, hit that sub button for me if you guys haven't already. Wide receivers are the number one topic we're talking about today, but that is not it. Go on ahead, hit that sub button for me if you guys haven't already.